Hi, thank you for tuning in to Channel 105. This is your host, Corey Lynn, and we'll be having a special report on a major historic incident that has happened almost 9 years ago. We will take a look back on this devastating day. On September 11th, 2001, terrorists associated with Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 commercial passenger aircraft and used these as weapons in order to attack targets in New York and Washington, D.C. in what came to be known as September 11th, 2001 attacks. 2 aircraft, American Airlines Flight 11 and United States Airlines Flight 175, were flown by the terrorists into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, causing massive immediate damage and starting fires that eventually caused the weakened 210-story skyscrapers to collapse. First call came in just after 8:46 in the morning to the fire department's Manhattan Dispatch Center. Battalion Chief Joseph Pfeiffer was a few blocks away and saw American Airlines Flight 11 crash into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Battalion 1 called in reporting the plane crash and asked for a second alarm. Around the same time, the Emergency Medical Service also got a call on its frequency. Soon, the dispatchers were overwhelmed with calls from fire companies in Lower Manhattan. An unidentified man called the dispatchers and said, "The World Trade Center Tower number 1 is on fire." There was just a huge explosion. "We have a number of floors on fire. It looked like the plane was aiming towards the building. Transmit a third alarm." Within 4 minutes, firefighters were creating a staging area across the street from Tower 1, the North Tower of the World Trade Center. They called for more units and told the dispatch operators what they were seeing. People were jumping or falling from the upper floors of the building. As firefighters raced to the scene, many were sent into the lobby of the North Tower. There were calls of people trapped on the 104th floor, the 103rd floor, and the 83rd floor as well. A Marine fire unit was ready in the Hudson River to help evacuate the injured. Chief officers set up command center in the lobby as first arriving units entered the building and firefighters began climbing the stairs. A mobile command center was also set up outside on Vesey Street, but was destroyed when the buildings collapsed. A command post was then set up at a firehouse in Greenwich Village. The New York Fire Department deployed 200 units to the site with more than 400 firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics on the scene when the building collapsed. Many firefighters arrived at the World Trade Center without meeting at the command centers. Problems with radio communication caused commanders to lose contact with many of the firefighters who went into the buildings. Those firefighters were unable to hear the evacuation orders. A second plane was spotted. The plane was United Airlines Flight 175, but in the chaos, few firefighters could be sure what they were seeing. As the South Tower burst into flames, more units were sent into Lower Manhattan. Meanwhile, EMS dispatchers were still dealing with the rest of New York City. Downtown, the scene was confusing as dispatchers and responders grappled with 210-story skyscrapers that were both burning. As firefighters called into the dispatchers, there was some mix-up with the North and South Towers. Firefighters were climbing the stairs of the North Tower of the World Trade Center because they couldn't use the elevators. They also had difficulty hearing each other on their radios because a repeater system used to boost their signal in the skyscrapers wasn't always working. By 9:45, dispatchers got a call about people trapped in the conference room on the 100th floor of the South Tower, and then just before 10 a.m. the tower collapsed. The dispatcher tried to maintain control, but just as firefighters were taking stock of the situation, the second tower, the North Tower, collapsed around 10:20. Everything south of the Brooklyn Bridge was in a dust cloud. There was no visibility and people were all over the streets. Travel was nearly impossible. Firefighters were struggling to get to the scene and rescue each other. 343 New York City firefighters and paramedics who responded to the attacks on September 11th lost their lives, and countless others were injured. The casualties included First Deputy Commissioner William M. Freehand, Chief of Department Peter Gonsi, and Department Chaplain Michael Judge. There were a total of 2,605 deaths, including the 19 hijackers and 2,976 victims. The victims were distributed as follows: 246 on the 4 planes, and 2,605 in New York City in the towers and on the ground. More than 90 countries lost civilians in the attacks on the World Trade Center. This is a conclusion to our show. Stay tuned for Sports Central.